just a little fun car to drive. It's a little modern Mini Cooper. It's a new generation car for its time. I always like cars that define a generation, and this car did its job very well. I think it was a movement after the muscle car era. Japanese cars came in and created these little pocket rockets that basically redefined what front-wheel drive cars can do. Before it was the Golf GTI and I believe the Ford Escorts that put a pretty good dent in the market, but this car stands on its own because of its better suspension with all double wishbone design all around, better geometry, and that definitely improved the handling of the car. My name is Jack Mardikian. I'm the owner of a 1988 Honda Crx Si. Pretty much the car is all stock, no mods done to it except for small suspension work that I've done. The reason I got the car was mainly because it influenced me in the late 80s when this car was introduced as a very good looking first car, and it had great suspension, good engine, great price, and I was an autocrosser back then, and this car was just on rails. I said one day I'm gonna buy one of these cars, but many other cars came along the way, much more expensive cars, but this thing remained in my mind all these years. I started looking for one, and it took me probably about a year to narrow it down to the one that I actually wanted. There was a couple of criterias. One of them was I wanted a black car for some reason. I think it looked great in black. I love the interior on those cars. They had the special cloth in there with the little stripes. I went ahead and looking for one, couldn't find one that was unmolested. I was surprised that they've sold so many of those and yet you couldn't find one that's unmolested. Finally, I was looking through Auto Trader one day and I found one that's being sold by a guy in Washington that's a pilot that bought it brand new. Basically, he bought the car, drove it for about 15-20 years and parked it, and he didn't drive it since I think 2005. So we struck a deal. I purchased the car, and it took a whole month for me to get it for some reason, and that was kind of nerve-wracking because I didn't know what to expect. When the car arrived, I was very surprised how clean it was. The paint was in perfect shape. The interior was amazingly clean. The steering wheel, the dash, the seats were not torn for that flimsy cloth they use. I was surprised. So first thing I did was basically drive it around, see how it feels, and got that nostalgic feel. At that point I decided, you know, I can do small modifications without ruining the car. And that's when I decided to do just slight things like putting new shock absorbers and maybe lowering springs, not aggressive. And went ahead with some rims and tires, which are a little stickier and wider to give it the stance. And that's pretty much what I've done to it. There was a few things missing on it, door locks and stuff that have been removed, which I took care of. And then just cleaned it out and made it look perfect. So the car today is just a joy to own, a joy to drive, brings a lot of memories. And to be honest, even in today's standards, this car is a very well balanced, amazingly good handling car. I'm really impressed with what Honda has achieved with their double wishbone suspension design. I think it was a brilliant idea at the time to make a front-wheel drive car handled as good as it does, and it goes like the engine goes, revs forever for a small 12-valve engine. I think it's something I'm going to be owning for a long, long time. I think a lot of people that were exposed to this generation of cars eventually are going to come around and start looking for one, and they're going to have a hard time finding it. I think as time goes by, they're going to become even more rare. And I was very amazed when I really actually started putting the little bits together. I found how difficult it is to get parts for. I mean, literally these cars were all over the place. You could go to Ralph's and pick up a part for it. But nowadays, It's impossible. I mean, it's got a lot of knick-knack stuff you could find, but the good, important stuff that you need is just unavailable. I'm really privileged to have found this car and owning it and enjoying it. And I think many people will probably feel the same as I do, especially people that have been exposed to this car.